The House at the convention that a maiden speech is made without interruption, provided he does not provoke an interruption. I call John Stewart.
Might be happy to take an intervention at some stage. Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and what a privilege to follow the member for Lagan Valley, who I had the privilege to be elected with, along with a few others in 2017, and we've waited 1,168 days for this moment. And what a wait it's been, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's a moment I thought, honestly, at some stage in the last 3 years would never come, and I am so pleased that we are here today. It's 20 years since I sat just roughly in this seat with my Carrickfergus Grammar School politics class, as many of us did when we were at school, came to visit the big house, and I remember saying to my teacher at the time, Miss McKinley, how I would love to do this for real one day, representing the people of East Antrim, and it is an immense honour to stand here today and to give this maiden speech representing each and every one of them, and it's a responsibility that I'll never take for granted. East Antrim, as I'm sure you'll agree, Mr Speaker, is the centre of the universe, and the nicest constituency in Northern Ireland. And I think you'll give me a bit of leeway just to reflect on that for a second. It's full of our tourist gems, the gateway to the Causeway Coast, and a drive that's been described by many as the nicest anywhere in the world. It's a constituency with a wonderful blend of rural communities and coastal towns and villages, from Carrickfergus to Carnlough, from Green Island to Glenarm, from the Glyn to Gleno. And if there was any upside to the hiatus of the last 2 years, it was the ability to represent the people of East Antrim on a daily basis on constituency matters that mattered to them. I'm a proud, progressive Liberal Unionist, and probably some would say too progressive at times. I have a business background and spent 7 years in local government. My grandfather was a B Special, my dad was an RUC officer, and I'm a member of Her Majesty's Reserve Army. There will be many in this chamber that will have fundamental differences with our past and how I see them and how you see them, and probably on the future as well, and we'll debate those out and we'll do it in a respectful manner. But there are many issues that we will agree on, whether it's on housing, on health, on mental health and education, on growing the economy, on the housing crisis we face. Hundreds of issues that each and every one of us in this chamber can get behind each other on and agree. Bread and butter issues, real life issues, and that is why we're all here. That is what we agree on. The climate change emergency is also one of those. Not only is it massive here, but it is across the world. And as the spokesperson for the Ulster Unionist Party on climate change, I am happy to stand today to support Amendment 1 and the specific asks of the original motion, specifically Northern Ireland-specific legislation in the form of an all-encompassing Climate Change Act, Northern Ireland targets on emissions, the need for an independent Environment Protection Agency, in addition to our party's commitment to see zero net carbon future by 2035. Mr Deputy Speaker, none of us in this chamber are climate scientists. The only sensible thing for us to do in understanding the science behind climate change is to follow the advice of the overwhelming scientific experts. The science behind this, the link between CO2 and rising temperatures, along with the associated risks of burning fossil fuels, have been well established for decades, but the issue has probably only been in the political agenda since the late 80s. It took a politician with a scientific background, and like it or not, a lot of courage to spell out the implications. And they said, I spoke about the global threat of climate change. I set out the magnitude of the challenge we face. Until recently, we have always thought that whatever progress humanity made, our planet would stay much the same. That may no longer be true. An inconvenient truth, perhaps it was not Al Gore, it was Margaret Thatcher speaking in October 1989. That was over 30 years ago. And since then, the narrative has evolved greatly, with virtually all developed countries around the world having implemented essential legislation to help combat the causes and effects of climate change. There's been a lot of talk in this Assembly about a fresh start and the feeling that we need to not rake over the past or be partisan for the sake of it. However, as a new legislator, I feel I need to ask the question, why are we the only devolved region of the UK which does not have an independent EPA and climate change-specific targets? Looking back to the period of devolution post-2007, there seems an obvious conclusion to be made. While officials in various departments, local government and NGOs did a sterling job on climate change, there has been a severe lack of political leadership. As a result, the last Stormont executive was the only administration in the UK and Ireland not to have produced its own laws to cut carbon emissions. I am not saying, Mr Speaker, that legislation is a panacea to all the problems, and there is an awful lot of virtual signalling on this issue, but the impression has been given for too long that Northern Ireland does not take the issue seriously, and that is unfortunate, to say the least. What we need can be summed up in 2 words: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation meaning addressing the causes of climate change, and many have been alluded to today, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that later. and adaptation,
draw his remarks
meaning
to
the
close?
necessary changes to reduce and negate the effects of climate change, such as building sea walls and other things in our coastal communities. Neither of these will be easy, and they're not meant to be easy, and they cannot be done in a silo mentality, but with cross-departmental and collegiate approach, and I support the motion. I was going to take an extra 10 seconds.